Okay, so in this lesson in Adobe After Effects, we are going to talk about effects, predominantly transition effects. And I also want to talk a little bit about my philosophy on how transitions should work and when they should work and what they're really useful for, and not just, button pushing in this lesson, but more so some of the ideas behind transitions and what they really mean and what we really want to do with them. So we have this cut here. Let me make my video tracks a little bit bigger so we can see a little bit bigger. Cool. So we have this clip cutting to this clip right here. You can see this little red line. That is because there's a duplicate of this clip later on in the sequence. So if you ever see any of these colored lines, they put these colored lines there because, oh, look, I accidentally used this clip twice in this sequence. So that's a bit of a problem. I'll fix that later. But for now, I want to talk about transitions. So transitions happen at the cut point. And if you think about it, the cut point itself is its own transition, right? To go from one clip to another clip, we have made a transition. We have transitioned from one clip to another clip. So don't ever let anybody tell you that a cut is not a transition. It's not a transition effect, but it is, in fact, simply enough a transition to go from one place to another place. As an idea, amazing that works. If you think about the history of film and the history of video, the idea that we could take two pieces of film and cut them together and have two seemingly unrelated scenes and put them together, and it makes some kind of cohesive thought, a punctuation between two different edits. It's kind of surprising to mind that thinks that that would actually work, that the mind can conceive of, oh, we see something, then we see something else, and we've understood we've made a cut from someplace else. So if you see, the girl in the burning building, and then you cut to a picture of a fire truck or a video of a fire truck or a film of a fire truck going down the street, our brains can attain, oh, that fire truck must be going to the girl in the burning building, and that works. I don't know. I'm just feeling really philosophical about these things today. So we're going to talk about transition effects, obviously. So a cut works in most cases. So in a transition, what we can do is we can park somewhere near the cut point, anywhere we want near the cut point, and we can hit Command D. And that will do by default if we're near the cut point and make sure the video track is on. If we're near the cut point and the video track is on, we can hit Command D and do a dissolve. And that will do a cross dissolve, which will look like this. There, it does a cross dissolve. The dissolve is finished. Congratulations, we've done dissolve. When we click on it, we can highlight it and delete it and get rid of it if we want to. But there, simply enough, hitting Command D will do a dissolve. So there is a simple enough dissolve. Notice the way the dissolve works. The dissolve actually splits across the clip. So if this is A1 and this is A14, this clip is A1, this one's A14, this splits right across the middle of the clip. Now, if we click on the clip, I want to show you some controls here in terms of clicking on the clip and what it does. So we click on the clip and we highlight the clip. We can go over here to Effects Controls. There's a little panel over here called Effects Controls, and we can look at what this does. So this is doing a effect of a cross dissolve. It is doing it from here, A to B. It is 1 second long, and it is centered on the cut, which means over 1 second, if this is going at 24 frames a second, I think the sequence is at 24 frames a second. At 24 frames a second, this is 12 frames over here, cut to 12 frames over here, and it does it this way. And so it does 12 frames to 12 frames and overlaps this way. And it kind of shows this to you up here. This is kind of this cut. This is this A1, and this is A14, and it overlaps and transitions less of this and then to more of this up into A14, and it transitions kind of this way. So that is a simple enough cross dissolve, and we can put cross dissolves at random places simply by hitting Command D for dissolve. Now, I want you to tell you a story about something to be careful of, something to be concerned about, something to watch out for. And that is the way that Adobe Premiere preferences when I click on something. So if I click over here and click on this, and I park here, so Adobe Premiere Pro will preference or put priority to what I'm clicked on over where I'm parked. So I'm parked here, or even so, I could say, let's zoom out, and let's say I'm clicked over here. And then I zoom back in. Now I'm clicked on this clip, which means this one's highlighted in white, and I can see this one highlighted in white. But now I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to hit Command D, and nothing happens. And so I get upset and I hit Command D again and nothing happens. And then I move a little bit closer to the cut point and I say, cool, I'm right there, Command D. And then I check this over here and I say, hey, this is right, and Command D, nothing happens. Well, you know what? Something is happening. And that is because Adobe prioritizes what I'm clicked over on what I'm parked. And what happened is I did a dissolve on this. And that's kind of cool. I mean, if I wanted to do that, this is this clip of Sari cutting over to.
Provides nature with people. And
it did a dissolve at the beginning and the end of this clip. Well, I didn't necessarily want that, so let's get rid of those dissolves beginning and end. But if I am clicked on something, Command D is going to put dissolves on the beginning and end of that. So if I'm clicking this clip, Command D, boom, put dissolves there. So just be careful. If ever you notice that you're parked somewhere and you're like, hey, I'm parked right here, and all of a sudden you hit Command D and it's not doing anything, it probably is doing something, especially if the video track is on, the video tracks are on, and it's there, and this is selected. I would immediately hit undo. Now, what I would make sure of is before I do a dissolve, at a cut point by parking near the cut point, the current time indicator parked near the cut point, before I did the dissolve, I would make sure I wasn't clicking anything. And the easiest way to do that is in this upper space up here and just click up there. So if I am clicked on something, just click up here. I am clicked on a bunch of things, just click up here. If I'm clicked on everything, Command A, click on everything, I can click up here. The other thing I could do is if I am clicked on everything, Command A, the opposite of select all, and this works in most programs, I think. I think this works in your software interface. If I'm on something like this, and I said here, Command A would grab everything. Do you know that Command Shift A will deselect everything, and that will unselect everything? So here, if I'm ever clicked on something or everything, Command Shift A would deselect everything. Oops, that's opening up in the program. That's there. Let me click back onto Adobe Premiere. And there, that would deselect. So if I am selecting something, Command Shift A, deselect everything. That's a little trick I learned there. So now that I'm not clicking anything, I hit Command D and it does a cross dissolve. Now that is a cross dissolve on the video. If you want to do a cross dissolve on the audio, you can hit Command Shift D. And this is if you were going from some music source to some music source, or even if the cut from this point was aggressive, you could hit Command Shift D and do an audio constant power cross dissolve from one to the other on the audio. So, if you ever want to do a full dissolve, Command D, Command Shift D, do a dissolve on both. And now we have that dissolve on both the audio and the video, and they're like so. Now, I want to show you a couple things that happens when you do a dissolve at the very beginning. So if we do a dissolve at the very beginning, we're at the 0 point here. At the very beginning of the sequence, we hit Command D and does dissolve this way. And the reason it does that here, you'll notice here that it puts the dissolve kind of this way. It only puts it on one side. And so when we play this, it fades up here at 0. It doesn't put any space before this. Other programs, other software out there will actually put a space, grow a space, because other software will automatically do this centered on cut. And so here, if you click on the effect and it says centered at cut, here, if I add this dissolve at the beginning, it actually does this differently. Command D does a dissolve here. This dissolve here says starting at cut. And the reason it says starting at cut is because of the leftover footage that it needs to do to dissolve. There is no leftover footage, and it wants to keep this footage kind of aligned this way, so it fades up. And this is the equivalent of a fade up. There, it did a fade up. If I go to the end of the sequence, at the very end of the sequence, and I go here, and I do Command D, it's going to do it, click here, ending at cut. And the only option available is ending at cut. And that's because the way that these effects work, and I want to talk about this as an idea, the way that these effects work, they work a certain way to make this make sense. And this is called transition handle. And this is a really important detail. So say, for example, we're cutting from this clip to this clip.
I was approached by my Cleary.
And I'm actually going to trim this a little bit. I'm going to click here, double click, and I want to get rid of it. It almost sounds like she's saying was approached by Maya Cleary.
I was approached.
I want to take a couple frames off here. 1, 2. Let's see if I can get just I was.
I was approached by.
It's a cleaner cut. It's a little sharp. It's a little quick. It's a little aggressive, but.
I was approached by my Cleary.
Okay, so here's the circumstance. I'm going to zoom in super close. I'm going to hit the plus key and zoom in here. Not to the video, but here to the. Here, I'm going to zoom in. Whoops, I keep doing that. Here, I'm going to zoom in super close. So she says here, I was approached by my.
I was approached by my.
So the way this transition works is this is A14 and this is Virginia. And so we have A14.
I was approached.
And if we do a dissolve here, transition here, Command D, do a transition, it's going to look like this.
I was approached by my Cleary. I was approached.
And so we have that transition there. Now, the way this transition works is involves something called handle. And let me explain how handle works. When we take this clip here, A14, we took this clip right here. And if we go to the end of this clip here, we just go to the the cut point here, the last frame of this clip, and we hit the F key, match frame, we're going to show you that we grabbed this clip from here to here. This clip was this clip right here. So it ended right here. And then there's some more frames after this. And the frames after this, a little bit of frames after this is what's called handle. And this is really, really important because the way that this works is the frames after this allow us to do a transition. And then if we go to Virginia here, and we go to the very beginning of Virginia, the first from Virginia starts here, F key, match frame. This is the section of Virginia that we grab. And there's a whole lot of section after Virginia, and there's a little bit of space before Virginia. So this space right here is the handle before. So we take a clip, and we take a clip that's, say, this long, and we only take this section of it. We mark in and out points from here to here, and we say, let's just keep this part. But this part is a leftover. But, well, the software understands that this part still exists. So let me show you a different example here. Let me switch screens for a second. And I want to show you a different example of this. We're going to go to the whiteboard here because I think this is important. We're going to go here into the whiteboard, and here with the annotation controls, we're going to say, let's say, for example, let's make a shape here. And we'll make a shape that looks like this. And this is going to be A14. So this is A14. This is a bunch of people doing yoga. We'll make this a little bit smaller. Let me undo that, and let me just redo that. And then here it's going to be there like this. And then this next clip, the next clip that we have here is going to be something different. Let's say blue. And we'll make another clip here that's going to be this from here to here. And this is Virginia. So it goes from this shot to this shot. Well, after this clip, this first clip, this is, field of yoga people. And it looks like this. Great. And then this shot afterwards is Virginia here saying, I was approached by ... etc. And so we have that as an idea. Well, what happens is that after field of yoga people, what we end up having here is we have some leftover footage afterwards. And this is called the A-sides handle. And then before here, if we go back to this and we say here, let's go to some other footage here. Before this, we have this handle that's before I was approached by. So this is, Virginia saying, and she's doing that. And so that's some of that in there. That's, kind of right here. I was approached by my Cleary. And so that's in there. When it does the transition, when it makes the transition happen, what it does is it puts the transition over the center of this cut. So it uses a little leftover after the A clip. We'll call this the A clip. We'll call this the B clip. It uses a little bit after the A clip and a little bit before the B clip. So it uses, what do we say, 1 second? So it does 12 frames before the A clip and then 12 frames. So it's 12 frames of and then 12 frames after this to get that 1 second. And depending on the size of this transition, we basically get, different size of this. We'll get this wider, 2 seconds. We're going to get more leftover handle. Well, this is called centered on cut. So it leaves a little bit left over after this, and it used a little bit before this. And this leftover footage that wasn't used when we marked the in and out points, but was used eventually. Again, this is called handle. I just want you to understand that. It's a complicated idea. Well, what we can do is we can offset the handle. So the handle is here, or here, or here. If I put it here, it's going to do the transition a little bit later. It's going to do the transition starting at the cut point. So it's going to start from this frame and then use all of the leftover A side handle. If I put it here, I can use all of the leftover B side handle. And so this is a circumstance where we may say, hey, we want to fix this and do this differently. So let's take a look back here at this. We're going to do the transition here. And if we hit right here, click here and hit Command D, we'll do the transition. In this transition that I have here, this is this 1 second transition. I start to see Virginia's mouth open a little bit. It's kind of awkward and it's kind of weird. It's like mouth open. She's talking, she's saying something. And then when we cut here, that's where it says I was approached by. There's a little mouth flap there. Well, I want to get past the mouth flap. So I can change this transition to not be effects controls, to not be centered at cut, to be starting at cut. That's going to use all of A14, which means it's a later transition, but it doesn't change the length of my sequence. I'm just offsetting the transition.
I was approached by...
So you're not seeing this there. Now that's a little bit too much, I think. I'm going to undo there. And again, if I went here and did it ending at cut means it would complete the transition by the time it got to the cut point. It would use all of the leftover handle before Virginia.
And
you see the mouth moving a lot now. If I did this with the audio, I made this perfect. So if I did Command Shift D here with the audio at this point, let me undo this and let's do the Command D and Command Shift D. You're going to hear Virginia come back in here because you're going to start to hear that constant power of the audio sneaking in there from before Virginia. It starts to blend in. In order to blend in, it needs that little bit of overlap.
I was approached.
So now we're getting the back. If we didn't want the back, we can either not do the audio transition, or we could say Command Shift D, and we could say here, offset the audio transition. And you can actually just grab this. You can literally grab this. You can do this here by hitting starting at cut and offset like this. Or you could theoretically just grab this and pull this over like this. So it's doing the transition later. We can actually grab the edges of this. You'll see a little red bracket that shows up on the end here. They make this transition smaller. And as long as there's some bit of overlap here.
I was approached by.
So we want to say, even with the video, we could do starting at cut, or we could say make this smaller, and we could say offset this a little bit this way. So it does a shorter transition, maybe 1 second is a little bit long. Do a shorter transition, and it opens up this way.
I was approached by my clear.
But you need that little bit of leftover footage. You need that little bit.
Approached by.
You need that little bit of leftover footage. This is not something that happens all of the time. This is not something that happens regularly. Just every now and then you have an edit that just doesn't work because, something happened in the scene right before it. You set your in and out points right around a clip of B-roll, and you said, oh, this B-roll clip is exactly what I want it to be, and everything's perfect, but there was a bit of a camera movement, there was a weird camera shake, or there was a production assistant or a boom operator in the shot, and you just didn't want them in the shot. You needed them to be out of the shot, and so you marked in and out points to keep them exactly out of the shot. I'm just making a new sequence. We'll give another example of this because I think this is an important thing. We're going to call this effects handle. And we're going to take a couple clips here. We're going to decide that we have a shot here of, let's say, let's find some cool B-roll, some people doing yoga with goats. And you say, we have this shot here. And we have this shot, and she has her arm up, but we want her arm down. And so it can only be this footage here because it's really important that people don't touch the goats. And they're told not to touch the goats. And, this is for a promotional thing, and they're told not to touch the goats. And so we put this here right after she puts her hand down. So she's totally not touching the goats. She's just looking. She's just looking at the goats. There, don't touch the goats. That's fantastic. And so this clip has this footage over here that's her touching the goat. And so if we put this into a sequence, we say, cool, let's put this into a sequence. We'll insert this in here. We'll kind of come there. And then before this clip, the trick would be before this clip, we have this clip of Fiona running here to catch up the goat, and she catches up the goats. That's there. And so we say, okay, fantastic. Let's insert this clip in here. So it's going to use the footage after this, and it's going to use the footage before B13 here. So here, it's going to use the footage here, there. If we do this centered on cut like this, between here and here, between these two clips, if we go here and we say Command D dissolve, it's going to show in here some footage of her touching the goat, especially if this is longer. You'll see a little bit of, oh, look, her hand is right there touching a goat. We can barely see it, but if that's a problem, we'll make this super long so you can really see how long the transition is. Oh, look, she's touching a goat there. She's definitely touching a goat there. That's a problem. What you may want to do is offset where the transition is so that the transition hits differently. And you can see, look, it'll show you the last frame. When we grab and pull this, it'll show you the last frame of her. Let's wait till her hand goes down a bit. So we can start the transition pretty much probably there. Probably there we can start the transition there. And now we have some offset that we never noticed her hand was down the whole time. And we offset the transition because the shot was important because, and this is a weird example, but if it was somebody in the frame or somebody we couldn't have in the frame, if there was some issue with something, if there was a weird camera move or something was out of focus or there was a weird, assistant in the shot or something like that, or some kind of prop in the shot that just got removed out last second, that's there. But the idea of this comes back to when you make in and out points, even in a clip like this, maybe the touching the goat is okay. You don't want to make an in point here. Right? You don't want to make your out point here. You want to leave yourself a little bit of room, to have leftover handle just in case you want to do a transition. Let's do another example. I'm going to get rid of all this, and we're going to go here and we'll grab the shortest clips we have here. So in here, I can go to media duration and sort by media duration here. We're going to here, and I'm going to grab this clip A40, which is 4 seconds long. I don't even know what this is. This is this 4-second clip. And I'm going to grab all of this clip. We're just going to grab all this clip. I'll just drag down. Really easy, drag this clip down here. And I'm going to grab this clip, which is A14, and I'm going to grab all this clip. And I'm going to grab this from the beginning to the end. We're just going to hit Alt-X to clear out the in and out points. Alt-X, click the in and out points. And we're going to grab this, and I'm going to grab all this clip in here as well. Now, I'm grabbing this clip from very beginning to very end. You know that it's the very beginning and the very end because right here, it shows little white little corners there. And the white little corners said, hey, I grabbed this clip to the very, very end. This clip I grabbed from the very, very beginning because this is very end to very beginning. Now these clips are backed up. Now what I have here is I have no handle. There is no handle. Sorry, you're out of luck. Handle does not exist for these clips. So there is no place to overlap this. And so Premiere doesn't know what it wants to do. So if you hit Command D here, it's going to say insufficient media. I don't have any leftover footage. This transition will contain repeated frames. So it gives me a warning, says, hey, here's what I can do. I can go to the last frame of this and I can freeze frame. And I can go to the first frame of this and I can freeze frame, which looks kind of tacky. It looks kind of amateurish. It's kind of, I remember back in like the 90s, there was like an old school video transition thing, and it would like freeze frame the last couple of frames because it didn't have anything to transition with. And it was really it was for live broadcast. It was crappy garbage. It was like $100 and you could do transitions. And it just looked weird and awkward. And this is what this is going to do. It's going to do a transition, but you'll see that like in this transition, as this transition happens, everything stops moving. And it just stops. You saw these little, like, it almost looks like a hiccup. Like these women are not moving. And in this part of this, as these women, we'll make this even longer. We can stretch this out even longer, and you can really see how this looks. These women are not moving, and they start moving. Frozen and moving. It's really kind of, it's a mediocre. It's not the transition we want. You know, these are not the transitions we're looking for. Cool. Yeah, we need those extra frames. So here, if I were to say, let's take this and trim back 10 frames here, and I was to go here and trim back 10 frames here, there, I just trimmed back 20 frames total. Now when I do the transition, it says, hey, I have some handle because I pulled some of this off. I didn't choose some of this, and now I can do a transition. And coincidentally, if you look in the effects controls, it made an exactly 20 frame transition. It was like, hey, I'm going to give you a transition. I'm not going to give you a full second because you only had 20 frames left over after A40 and before A14. You only had a little bit left over there. This is the most I can give you. Anything longer, I'm going to have to freeze frame. And I don't want to have to add freeze frame frames on the end of this. That's not what I want to do, but something I can do. So it's not something that comes up all the time, but, you know, I tell shooters, you know, first time college student shooters, I say, hey, if you're going to shoot something, if you're going to shoot a pan, you know, hit record, count to 5 in your head, and then do the transition. You know, if you see like behind the scenes of a feature film shoot or something, they'll say rolling. Then they'll count to 5 silently in their head. Then they'll say action because they want a little bit of leftover footage. You always want to kind of pare down your footage. You always want to start with a longer clip and choose a smaller section of that longer clip. So you always want something bigger and then only take from here. You want some of that left over. You'll see that term handle come up in different parts of Adobe Premiere. It is a common film term in post-production. It's in other video editing programs, but the idea of the leftover footage at the end, this little fodder for transitions, is called handle. And handle is an important thing that you have to think about when doing transition effects. So that is important. I just want you to think about it and appreciate it for what it is. It's handle. Anyway, we're going to go back to effects here, and we'll go back to this clip here. And we'll go back to this sequence again. And again, if you want to do a transition across a B-roll shot, if you wanted to transition B-roll up and down, you could go here and say, yeah, let's go to, I don't know, this clip here. And we're going to hit here, just to zoom in a second here. We're going to hit Command D, and we're going to do a fade up and fade out. The fade up and fade out controls, the transition controls, if you don't know about them, they're here under Premiere Pro Preferences and in Timeline. In timeline, it says video transition default duration is 1 second, and that's what I have it set to. On older systems, on older versions of Adobe Premiere, it used to be set, and it might still be set to 30 frames, which I think is a weird way to go to have it set to 30 frames, because if you're doing a 24 frame per second project, it's going to do a 1 second 6 frame transition, which is just silly. I think setting it to 1 second says, hey, if I'm in a 30 frame per second project, it's going to do 30 frames. If I'm in a whatever, if I'm in 24 frame per second project, it's going to do 24 frames. If I'm working in PAL and I'm working 25 frames, it's going to do a 25 frame per second project. Either way, it's going to do 1 second. And I think that's the way to go. Unless you're working in news, then you maybe make it 0.5 seconds, make it half a second, because people like quicker transitions these days. These young kids, they really like the quicker transitions. I'm a good old-fashioned 1 second transition. I'll make it shorter if I want it shorter. I'll make it whatever speed I want to. And so you can do your transitions at a speed. But I want to talk about some of the ideas behind a transition and what a transition really is and how a transition really works and some of the things we can do with transitions. So let's talk about it as an idea here. And I think this is important there. Like I said before, the cut point, the cut between one shot and another. You can think of this like a blink. You can think of this like your eye blinking. Have you ever read the Walter Murch book, In the Blink of an Eye? You can talk about the idea of going from one thing to another thing is like the way that we blink. We almost, as human beings, we blink to transition our thoughts, basically. We don't blink at a constant rate. There is no like 10 blinks a second or 20 blinks a second. We blink to change our thoughts. So when you get bored of something, cool, I've got this Oasis sign. I understand this is the Oasis sign. Here it is, introduce sign. I'm good. Cut. And we cut to something else. The cut is like a blink. We go to something else. Our brain goes, we've absorbed as much of this material as we think we need, and new thought. And we go to another cut and we say new thought. So for each of these, somebody says something. Somebody says, I was approached by Maya Cleary, the president of Oasis, about a year ago. Got it. Cool. Snap. Blink. We go to something else. It's there. It makes sense. Why do we do a transition? Why do we do a transition like a dissolve? Why do we do a cross dissolve here? What is the purpose? What is its meaning?
I was approached by my...
Typically, and this is a fascinating fact, that we as a species have learned to interpret dissolves, transitions, as a change in time or place. This is old school film theory, that we just see a scene like this. We cut from this.
Take a nice deep breath in.
And here, for example, we go from this shot. We go from Virginia.
Yoga. Hold in triangle for one more breath. Take a nice deep breath in.
So again, here, a cut works. A cut works perfectly fine. But if we want to, we can hit Command D and we can add a dissolve here. Why do we add a dissolve? Because it looks cool? No, that's a bad reason to do a dissolve. A dissolve, in terms of cinematic language, in terms of film theory, is basically a drastic change in time or place. So it's meanwhile back in the jungle, meanwhile in the city, meanwhile somewhere else.
Breath in.
12 years from now, an hour from now, earlier in the day, some transition.
Breath in. So she thought,
I don't think we need a dissolve here, but some people get seduced by the idea of a dissolve. I worked with a guy who decided he wanted to put dissolves in between every single cut because it made it look filmy, as he said. I think that's a bad reason to do a dissolve. I don't think that's necessary, but
deep breath in.
I think a dissolve would say, oh, this happened much later. We go to, hours from now, later on that night.
Nice deep breath in.
Time has passed. Dissolves make sense. That said, the cross dissolve is the default. So Command D will do a cross dissolve. Control D on a PC, obviously, will do a cross dissolve. But if we go here into the effects panel, you'll see that there are other transition effects. There are other video transitions that exist. And these are the generic transitions that exist in between Premiere. You can download other transitions that exist. They are fun. They are cool. Let's take a look at the dissolve category here. So we're going to dissolves. And we'll look at the other transitions that exist. You'll see the additive dissolve, the cross dissolve, the dip to black, the dip to white, the film dissolve, the morph cut, and the non-additive dissolve, and that's in that category there. So we have those there. By default, it's doing the cross dissolve, and you'll know it's by default because it is set there with a little blue outline around the dissolve as it looks. And so it's there with a little blue outline. That tells you that the cross dissolve is an option. But there are other things we could do. We could do a dip to black. Now, if you want to do a dip to black, that's sometimes what's called in production the kiss black. Kiss black up on one. I remember that from my old TV studio days. Kiss black up on one. Boom. And dissolve. We can drag this on top and put this right in the center, and it would do our dip to black right there. Did we set this to, let's see how long that is. Is that 1 second? Looks like it's shorter. Let's take a look at the dip to black. We can click on it, and now the dip to black has some effects controls. It is 1 second there. It is showing the dip to black there. And if we play this back,
deep breath in.
So it comes up. Why would we do that? What would that say? That would say maybe, I don't know, philosophically, and you can decide as, you know, as a creator, as an artist, you can decide, hey, this dip to black.
A nice deep breath in.
So that is, you know, we are punctuating, we are ending this chapter, and we are coming to a new chapter there. I might make this a little bit longer, so it is a longer dip to black.
Take a nice deep breath in.
So this is a new story. You know, this is a new story. This is a new chapter. This is a new, hey, we've punctuated there. We've dipped to black. We've come back up to the video. We're in a new world and a new thing. This is, you know, not hours later. This is not in the next town over. This is a totally new world.
Take a nice deep breath in.
Maybe, maybe I'm coming up with an idea of what a dip to black is. I'm trying to justify why I use dip to black. I'm not going to use it just because I think it's cool. I'm going to use it because it has a reason, because it has a meaning, because it has some kind of value that means something. So that's an idea. We can go to a, say, dip to white, and we can say, grab a dip to white in here. And let's drag this out, the dip to white. And clearly, as far as I'm concerned, there's only one reason.
Take a nice deep breath in.
So she thought there's only one reason that we use a dip to white, and that is because somebody has died. Yeah. Every time you watch like an after school special and there's a bunch of kids driving late at night, they're on a joyride in a car. All of a sudden, they're having a good time. They're laughing. They're giggling.
Prep. Take a nice deep breath in.
We dipped to white. I'm like, oh, man, everything went bad. Next thing you know, what are we at? We're at a funeral. We're at a hospital. We're in, you know, something horrible. We're in heaven.
Prep. Take a nice deep breath in.
The dip to white. It's become a cliche, right? It's become a cliche of like, things went badly. Guess he didn't make it off that cliff.
Prep. Take a nice deep breath in.
So nope, they didn't survive. You wonder why? Because we dipped to white. Again, it's becoming part of our language, part of the idea of what we are as a species. We understand certain things about movies. Now, there's some other transitions we have in there. There's something in here called a film dissolve. I'm going to apologize to you. I'm going to apologize to you because I'm not that colorful. I'm not creative. If you do Command D and do a cross dissolve, Command D will look like this. We'll do a cross dissolve from here to here. So a film dissolve is supposed to look more like film, and it's supposed to be designed to look more like the way that films dissolved from images. And the way that films dissolved is they used to use an actual celluloid film. They used to use a device called an optical printer. And an optical printer was a device. We can just go and look here. An optical printer was this big machine, and this big machine used to do transitions. It was a big machine like this, and this big, huge, gigantic machine basically created transitions with film. And it was this big device that did it like there. And the way that it did it is it kind of mixed how two pieces of film work together, and it shined light through the film and took more of the film. It's a whole process. It's before my time. I don't understand it, but it was a big, heavy thing. Just to dissolve, you had to like blend two pieces of actual celluloid film together. It was kind of crazy. This is supposed to emulate that it looks more like how an optical printer made it dissolve as opposed to how a computer system made it dissolve, and it looks totally, totally different. Here's my problem. I can't tell.
A nice deep breath in.
So it looks like a dissolve to me. Does it look more movie-like? I don't.
Nice deep breath in.
Maybe. I don't see it.
Nice
I don't appreciate it. So we could click on the dissolve. We could render it. Sometimes if you render effects, if you go here and renders effects, you can say render selection. You can render this. It now just rendered it. So it created a piece of video media there. So does that look any better? Does that look different than the cross dissolve? It's supposed to. It really is. It's really supposed to. I'm sure there's somebody with better eyesight than me that says, oh, yeah, that's totally different. See how the way the light and the whites shine through? I can't. I got nothing. It's the same thing as a cross dissolve. It's there. Go here. I hit Command D. Oops, let's park close. Command D, I add a cross dissolve. Looks the same to me. I'm sure somebody believes it must look better, but it's there. There's some other transitions that we have in there. We have the additive dissolve that will add a little bit of brightness to it because we'll use like add mode there. But now we also have deep breath, everybody. Deep breath. We have some other silly effects. And so we have some silly effects like we have the wipes. And so we have the inset, we have the wipe, the traditional wipe. So let's take a look at the traditional wipe. We can drag this here to the cut point. And you actually see it drags to the ending at cut, centered uncut, and starting at cut. It'll drag to these different points here. And we're going to go here to centered uncut, and we'll drag this to centered uncut here, and it's going to do a wipe.
Breath in.
Now, what does that mean? Why do we do that? What is the purpose of that? Why would we bother doing a wipe? What is the value of a wipe?
Breath in.
Does it mean anything emotionally to the scene? No, I don't think so. I think it's a gimmick. I think it's a silly gimmick that people invented to
Breath in.
create crazy, wacky technology. But I do want to go in here for a second and look at this wipe here as an idea. So this wipe is called a standard wipe, and this wipe here actually has some controls. So you can create a border here, so you can actually put a border between your wipe. So down here, there's a border width. You can go to this border width here, and you can drag this number up. We can make this like a 10 pixel border, have 10 pixel border, maybe a 30 pixel border, really big border. And we can actually go in here and change the color of the border. We can click here and change this to a pink border. This makes even less sense. Oh, look at that pink border wipe. Man, I mean, why? Why would we do that? What is the value of this? What is it for? I don't have a good reason for it. Let's get rid of the border. Up here in the top corner, you'll see that we have some controls to change the alignment of which way that it wipes. Right now, it's wiping this way. If we click into this corner right here, we can have it wipe diagonally. Oh, a little diagonal. Boom. Oh, we can change this to this would be a vertical wipe, even though it's a horizontal line, is moving vertically. We could change it to this way. It would wipe the other direction, I think. Yeah, I'm sorry. So you can change different directions and change all your wipe patterns there. But why? I mean, what value does it have? What's purpose is it for? What is the good use of it? I don't have a good reason for it. I can't explain it. I can't justify it. It's there. But you look at like times in technology, times that like in the 1970s when this was the latest technology. You look at Star Wars. Star Wars had wipes in them. They have soft wipes, little wipes with soft edges on them. And so why do they have wipes with soft edges on them? Because George Lucas thought at the time that this was cool and this was the future of video technology, and it had to be there. And now even in the the new Star Wars movies, they still have the soft wipes in there. Why do they have the soft wipes in there? Well, because we just got used to them as being Star Wars, and Star Wars includes every time they go to a new solar system or new galaxy or, the Dagobah system or whatever, they go and they do. I know I'm showing how much of a nerd I am. They show some kind of soft wipe there because that's what it is. So you have these effects. You don't have to use them, but, they are there and they are there for a purpose. We have these, the slides. Let's see, the slides, the push wipe. And the push wipe is the same thing, except it takes the whole image and pushes over the entire image. Boom, like there. And again, this has controls. It has a border. It has directions. You can push down. You can push into different directions here. Push down like there. Now, here's a little bit of history lesson. The history lesson being is that when wipes first came on board, when wipes first started getting kind of explored and people started looking at wipes as an idea, it was something that was new technology. People got seduced by the technology. Oh, we can do wipes. And real artists were going, well, why? What is a wipe for? Why do I do a wipe? Why would I choose to do a page peel or a page turn? You can do a page turn and you can have it do a little page turn. You can actually click on your page turn and change the direction of your page turn and then have it look at that. Look at that page turn up there. Ooh, amazing. Why would you do that? Well, it was the 70s. It was the 80s. We had new technology and we just wanted to abuse it. And we abused it ridiculously. We did kind of bizarre, ridiculous things to make these controls. I really like that Adobe Premiere actually has a category called obsolete. As though not all of these are obsolete, because they are kind of the cube spin. Ridiculous transition, but it exists.
Breath in.
It exists there, and we can use it. Now, here's the thing. In the 80s, this was new technology, and we were really excited about it. It was really cool. It was really kind of interesting to do these kind of crazy wipes. And then it became, kind of goofy and overused and kind of pointless and kind of, ridiculous. You saw wedding videos that had all these different transitions and all these different, zoom transitions, the cross zoom transition. And we can do, oh yeah, cool, different effects. But they really didn't, they don't have a real cinematic reason. I wouldn't see like a Scorsese film using any kind of weird, cube spin or page turn or anything like that. I wouldn't see those as transitions that would be worthwhile, but they exist. And you can actually go online. You can find other companies that make more transitions. We'll look at some Red Giant stuff, maybe part of the Red Giant Universe collection in a future lesson. And we can look at other transitions that exist and explore them and see what they do. Do they have a real purpose? Well, the truth is, wipes are making a comeback. They are. They're making a comeback. And the reason they're making a comeback is, I think, because of social media, because of YouTube, because of, young people wanting to make something that's retro or wanting to make something that's like a sizzle reel or something that makes like a viral video. You see these viral videos that come out of like, oh, blah, blah, I'm going to make a viral video about something. And they'll have push wipes. So we can go in here into these slides and go to a push slide, and you'll see them in kind of, sketchy, kind of playful, comedy, 10 things you never say to an Italian girl, blah, blah, boom. You see these 10 things. Why? Because they're gimmicky, because they're silly, because people want them to be kind of, retro trendy. And so, yeah, I've done them. I haven't liked them, but in the work that I do, someone said, hey, we're making a video that's going to be, on Instagram, and we want, we'll say, hey, give us that thing where the screen pushes over. Oh, you want to push wipe? It's there. It's an effect. It works. Is it wonderful? No, but it works. It does its job. And so it's an effect you can use. It's an effect you can do. And so you'll see them there. If you really want to have fun one day, go to someone else's system. And what you can do is you can actually grab like page turn or something, or page peel. I know, something that's totally, horrific. Maybe, I don't know what the worst transition here is. Maybe the diamond wipe, the diamond iris. Yeah, let's do the diamond eye. Oh, how awful. Yeah, we can actually go to here and we can right click on the iris diamond and say set selected as default transition. Bam. And now every time you hit Command D, it's going to do a diamond. It's going to do Command D. It's going to do. Oh, look at that. Command D. Control D. It's going to do that automatically. Do you want to do that? No. Is that mean? Probably. But it's a little funny. It's a little funny. It's a little thing there. Really quickly, the last thing I want to talk about in this and doing transitions, we'll talk about other video effects you can do in a future lesson. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. But for this, the last thing I want to talk about here is there's a category here called immersive video. So in immersive video, you'll see VR chroma leaks, VR gradient wipe, VR iris leaks, VR light leaks, VR, all these different things, Mobius zoom. These were designed, Adobe Premiere, from my experience, really jumped headfirst into doing VR stuff. So if you have an Oculus headset or you have like a Sony VR headset and you really want to get involved in immersive video, this 360 spherical around your whole head, you live inside the world, you have a headset on like an Oculus or a MetaQuest or whatever they're calling it now. If you really want to live in this world, we created a lot of controls, and we can look at this in a future lesson, a lot of controls to do really good VR. A lot of other software, a lot of other video editing software is not touching VR whatsoever, but man, Premiere, After Effects, Adobe is really like, no, we're ready. Let's do it. Let's jump headfirst into the VR world. And I think that's really, a lot of stuff they're going into. They're really excited about it. They're really cool about it. And so they made a lot of VR features inside of Premiere, which we can talk about again in a future lesson. I'm sure we will. But for now, they also said, hey, if we're making all this VR stuff, you know what we should do? We should also include a lot of new effects. We should make some new effects that have some VR work in them. Now, so these are the immersive video categories, but I'll tell you a secret. You can use them even if you aren't doing VR. They do work perfectly fine in a regular environment. So I do want to show you to you, and you'll see some of these. These are kind of like what I think of like sports sizzle reel or like highlight video, action extreme sports, or some kind of a opening kind of thing, some kind of playful, highlight montage or something, some things there. So let's look at, like, for example, chroma leaks. The chroma leaks is based chroma's color. Chroma leaks does this kind of effect, which is kind of a weird thing. Now you'll see that this will play through slowly. Sometimes it plays back real speed if you computer system can handle it and you're working with decent video. But this is actually a lot of controls in here. So if you do click on this, you do have a lot of controls to adjust this. So there's the vertical leak strength, the leak angle, the luma threshold, the leak brightness, the leak saturation, the blend factor. I don't even know what all these things do, but man, we can just tweak some. Let's check the leak angle and the vertical leak strength. I don't know. It is a horizontal leak strength, but we'll do some vertical leaks as well. The luma threshold will crank that down. We'll take the leak brightness. We'll put brightness up. So now we change this a little bit there and have a little bit of. So nice. So that's, that might be something I would see in like ESPN, something, doing something crazy. There's the chroma leaks. Some of these aren't bad. Some of these are kind of fun if you're doing that kind of work. VR light rays here. So we can look at VR light rays and see those kind of that weird light rays. Let's click on this and see what this has. Okay, let's see. It has a start point, an end point. Click on the start point, and we kind of move the start point over. Oh, weird. And the end point we can move. I don't know. I honestly don't know what I'm doing here. The ray length, let's crank the ray length up. Oh, that's a lot. That's almost completely washed out there. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Look at that. The luma threshold, crank that up or maybe crank that down. Yeah, that's cool. The tint color, let's use tint color. Oh, ooh, I like it. Let's make the tint color lavender, like a magenta. Pink. Let's just say pink. Yeah, like a heavy duty pink. I don't know why. Oh, weird. I don't know. So this is the VR light rays. So weird. I don't know. Do you like that effect? I don't know if I like it, but it's it's something. I really want to see Mobius zoom. I'm not sure what Mobius zoom is. I have no idea. Sounds weird. Oh no, I don't like that at all. Yeah, that's a dumb effect. Let's. Sorry, I'm sorry I asked. VR random blocks though, and I know VR random blocks is silly. It's just silly. Yeah, I get it. Cool, it's silly. But if you did something where you said, let's do block width and make it bigger, and block height and make it bigger, something like there, and the size deviation. Let's keep the size. I don't know, something, and we can feather this a lot, and just have it like there. I feel like this could be like a weird kids science show. Maybe it was even slower.
Nice deep breath in.
Children's television. You think like, oh, all these transitions are weird and dumb. But man, children's television, you'll get into it. And then next thing you know, you're doing them on a regular basis. It's a thing. Anyway, these are transition effects. There's lots of transition effects you can choose. And like I said, we can go online, we can find and download and pay for other third-party plugins of different transition effects. But each of the transition effects will have their own controls. So let's see. Command D, did I set it back? No, it's still doing the diamond wipe. I'm so cruel. Should I leave it? Should I just leave it for the next person who's on the system? No, I should switch it back. I should be a good person. Let's go. Video transitions, dissolve, cross dissolve. Now we're back to normal. Command D, and it's there. Can I show you something funny too? And this is how tricky this is. If I'm clicking the dissolve and I hit Command D, since I'm clicking this dissolve, it's going to re-add the dissolve at the same place. Even if I'm parked over here, I am clicked. This dissolve is highlighted in white. Command D won't do a dissolve between these clips. It's just going to re-dissolve this. I'm hitting Command D repeatedly. It literally doesn't do anything for me. That's so silly. Why do you got to be silly like that? But I can do dissolves up here. As long as the video track is on, it's going to do dissolves up there. Boom, and dissolve there. But since this is the beginning of the clip, it doesn't dissolve anything else into here. It just dissolves
yoga teacher
into there. Do transitions sparingly. Think about it. Think of yourself as a creative. Think of yourself as an artist. Decide what you want to do a transition for and why you want to do a transition. What is the value of the transition and what does it mean to you? It's things you want to think about before you just go head first into doing dissolves just because they look filmy. Don't ever use that term. It sounds dumb. Anyway, we'll go on to future lessons and we'll get into lots of effects. I'm really excited to talk about effects in a lot more lessons. Effects are a lot of fun inside Adobe Premiere. There's a lot of stuff you can do in Adobe Premiere and in Adobe After Effects, but we'll have a good time. We'll make some cool stuff, and I will see you in a future lesson.